welcome to all the attendees. Uh, this is a Web3 seminar, right? So, or a webinar. Let's be as interactive as possible. The chat room is completely open. You can put your questions there. Whenever there is strategic breaks or section breaks inside my presentation, happy to look at it and answer them and discuss more on it. So let me start by saying that if someone says they know Web3 completely, they're completely bluffing you because no one knows Web3 completely like AI, right? There are so many streams, there are so many things happening across the world that it is extremely difficult to track. And right now we are in an era where regulations are rising in, right? So the presentation, what we will have today, or the webinar, what we'll have today is mostly to understand what's Web3 in and how the trends are happening and how the regulations are kicking in and what will happen if the regulations kick in. So what happens when regulations kick in, right? Or why Web3 is very important? It's part of everyone's life, but we don't know, right? One is the securities we invest, or the kind of real estate we take on, or the art we purchase, anything which has economic value to it. It has a Web3, it has a potential of Web3 around it. So that becomes more and more important for us to work or understand towards it and see what's happening in that world. So let me start sharing my screen. Please confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, Abhinav.
Just 1 second. Okay, you can see my screen, right?
Yes, Abhinav.
Now let's in the like I told you, Web3 is not a new concept for most of us, but it is taking different shapes and it is taking different turns as we go on. There are multiple reasons for it, but now we are at a tipping point where regulations are kicking in. So that's the most interesting part. Now let us understand what is happening to Web3 in the era of rising regulations. First, let us understand what's Web3 is. Web3, if I can explain you in a simple terms, it's an evolution of the web. So crypto assets and Web3 are two different things. So Web3 is how you as an individual or an entity interacts with the internet or the web. And the web one, when it started, it was only a read-only web. That means there were only few sources or select sources or entities which were publishing information, and you as an entity can consume information only. That is called read-only web. And it went on to the second stage that is called Web 2, where the era of social media came in, where both the entities can contribute, right? There is something called user-generated content, which is very popular. That the whole Instagram business model is revolving under user-generated content. Facebook's social media is one good example. Wikipedia is good example. Not only that, but if you go there, there is payments which have started happening in Web2 world, because you could enter, you could select particular thing to shop. There are some uh, uh, rails which have been created to interact with you and take your information inside the web and do some action. So that is Web 2. And phase 3 is Web 3, where you not only read, write, but also own. That means execute. You can be part of the governance structure. That's the most important part, right? Let me give you an example of Web 2 and then and Web 3. In Web 2, you can't decide the rules, right? If you are part of Instagram, you can't decide if what is the tariff or the money you will get as as part of monetization. You being a high quality content generator versus a low quality content generator, can you decide based on some parameters? Today you can't. There is no way you can execute a particular contract between both the entities inside the web. But right now in Web3 ecosystem, I can say that those tenets are being seen here. You as a user and part of the whole community can decide how you should move on. Like very similarly to any other company, like the board of directors are very important, the shareholders decide the next path of uh, the strategy. Similarly, even in Web3, you can decide how the interaction, how monetization, how content generation, or any kind of a use case can be charted. So this is Web3. Now, in that Web3, some of the important or most famous, uh, uh, if I can say, drivers was cryptocurrencies, and the most important of them is Bitcoin, and then it is Ethereum. So I'll not quickly go there, but let me go to organic next step. That is core pillars of Web3, right? I told you what are the characteristics of Web3, but how usually it is executed is a very, very interesting concept in itself. It even takes like even and 3 or 4 months class, multiple education technology companies are offering that. But let me concise it and tell you there are four important technologies which are part of the old world. It's not completely new, but how they have stitched together makes Web3 so beautiful. First is blockchain, where decentralization is the key. And it's not about decentralization, but the chain is hashed between different blocks in such a way that the ledger becomes immutable. So that means once it is coded in blockchain, it is there. You can't mute it, you can't change it. That's the first technology. Second, so that brings in a lot of transparency inside the system. Next is smart contracts. Smart contracts are nothing but a line of or a program, or you can say line of code, lines of code, which will govern the whole system. Okay, the whole system in which the users as well as different nodes, which have different roles inside a particular ecosystem, behave with each other in a particular way, right? That is called smart contract. Based on the smart contract, the governance of the whole community happens, or a Web3 group of entities who are part of that particular Web3 community has to obey. Now, third is decentralization. That's very interesting, right? Again, the third thing is where the control is not with one particular entity; it's with everyone. There is smart contract, but to change the smart contract, there are certain policies which are framed around, and they're completely decentralized. If there is smart contract but there is no decentralization, it is not truly Web3. There has to be a decentralization, which means all the users based on their roles have a say in changing the smart contract or evolving the smart contract. So that is the third pillar, which is decentralization. So there is a participation of all the participants inside this distributed network. Now, the last part, which is very important, that is the reason I highlighted, is tokenization. So what happens in tokenization is, in the blockchain, there has to be some value, or there has to be some entity which has to move around, right? For smart contract, for incentivizing the participants in the decentralized ecosystem. For that, there is a new layer or layer of tokenization is added. Now, tokens are created in multiple ways. We will see how the issuance happen in multiple ways. But tokenization is a method. What it does is it takes an asset which is there in the real world and tokenize it, which means first it digitizes it, then breaks it into pieces and makes it uh, sometimes fungible, sometimes non-fungible, to be adaptable or compatible with the Web3 ecosystem, which has blockchain, smart contracts, and decentralizations in it. It may be a little heavy right now, but let me go deeper to tell you how different types of tokens happen and how tokenization actually works there. That will clarify a lot of your doubts right now. Now, before that, right, there is a very important term called crypto asset, right? I told you, which led the whole story of Web 3.0. So we'll dwell more upon crypto assets, right? So what is crypto asset? So I wanted to show you a very interesting insight, which says how crypto assets are being termed by regulators across the world at different intervals of time. So in 2013, Bitcoin means crypto asset. All right. Then slowly, if you see, there is a fair amount of bent towards virtual currency because it is virtual and currency. And then it evolved. Today, if you see in 2019, after usage of multiple things like virtual currency, crypto, digital, DLT asset, virtual asset, crypto asset is taking traction. And my estimation is the crypto assets will become a mainstream verb or token, sorry, a part of the taxonomy and terminology for all the regulators to go on. But right now, this is how regulators are using. Some of the regulators are calling the same thing as digital asset. Someone is calling as crypto asset. Someone is calling as digital financial asset. There are multiple ways. The definitions have small one or two changes in it, but largely it is around that. So if I multiple people interchange these terms to use, but crypto asset is generally being used right now. And most of the regulators are still calling it as virtual currency too. Now let's understand what are types of crypto assets or crypto tokens around the world. There are six important types, and there are multiple ways to segregate them or categorize them. This is one way. I'll show you a very different take on the same thing in the next slide. So the first one is utility tokens, where the primary role of a token is utility. That means you want to pay something to some person or you want to measure anything. That's utility. Now, second token is called security tokens. Security tokens are the primary purpose is to make sure the entities which are involved has enhanced security. So nobody can understand what's inside it, why even it is being traded from one place to other place. There is a layer of security around that particular token. The third one is called stable coins. Stable coins, by the name it says stable coins are the reasons because other tokens which are being traded as assets has a lot of volatility to it, but stable coin do not have, or I should say, is the thesis itself is written in such a way that it is stabilized to a particular currency or a particular value of a commodity in the real world. Maybe US dollar, maybe Australian dollar, maybe Singapore dollar, or euro. So there are multiple things. USDT or USDC is a very good example of a stable coin. Next are called governance tokens. Governance tokens are again used for important use case, which is governance. Because I was telling you about smart contracts and decentralization, right? How do you work in that ecosystem or create design systems in the Web3 world, which will enable users to change smart contracts or which will enable users to participate inside that proposal mechanism or voting mechanism. That's where governance tokens help it. It will gives you weights, or it will help us to define roles of the users. It also incentivize people who are participating in the governance mechanism. So these tokens are called governance tokens. And next is called DeFi tokens. DeFi means decentralized finance, and tokens which are enabling or created with a use case of enabling decentralized finance, where tokenization is a very big part, are called DeFi tokens. And last are NFTs. It is nothing but non-fungible tokens. Everything on the top, what you can see are fungible. That means there are replicas of each token, and you can change tokens or exchange tokens between two entities, and the value remain same. But NFTs are very interesting. Most of the arts or intellectual property is uh, pegged with NFTs. NFTs can be created for any kind of an intellectual property. Maybe your identity card can be an NFT, and there can be an art piece, can be an NFT. What happens is once an NFT is created, it is tokenized, and those tokens can be traded between different people, or it can be split into parts, and multiple ownership can happen to that NFT. Is the whole concept around it. Now there is something called, this is NFTs. There are soul-bound NFTs, also soul-bound tokens, which are there, which are usually ownership is also fixed for that NFT. In NFT, it is not fungible, but ownership is always evolving. But soul-bound tokens do not have a change in ownership. It is a kind of an NFT only, but it is usually used for identity card, which has to be only with a particular entity, like a person having driving license or a passport, right? Something like that. Now, this is one take on crypto tokens, which is pretty popular in the ecosystem. But now, as I said, there are lot of regulations coming in. I'll not go deeper into it, but there's a very good schema diagram issued by ESMA. ESMA is a European Union regulator. It has launched something called MiCA, Market in Crypto Assets. There is a new regulation which has been launched. In that, they try to categorize how a crypto asset look like, right? The first thing starts is it actually the particular DLT, distributed ledger token, has similar characteristics of a financial instrument or not? So that is a kind of a categorization, level one of a categorization, right? If that has, then the normal regulations, whatever there, it is applied. It's a financial instrument. For them, it is not different. Now, second, if it is no, then they ask a question that does it has value or it do not have a value around it, which is pegged. So if it is pegged to a single currency, it's called e-money token. Like I said, USDC or a euro coin, right? Those are all pegged to a single currency. So that's called e-money for that. Now, if it is not pegged to a single currency, but it has basket of other assets, maybe a bit of there is a new token or a currency which is a bit of Bitcoin, Ethereum, some USD, some Australian dollar, Japanese yen. It's a basket of things, right? Multiple things. Then it is called asset reference token. There is a basket of assets which are pegged, and then this particular token is floated. Now, if there is no real asset or a stable which is at the back, then it is called, it's a general crypto asset, and it has again three parts to it. And in that three parts, one is utility token, as I told you, it has to have utility. Second is NFT. Third is without the issuer, right? Where issuer need not be there, but there is an intermediary which is dealing with it. So this is how they are distributing different types of assets. This is a different way of categorization of the digital assets. Now let's take a step back. What's happening in the world? We did see how Bitcoin prominence increased, but everything started during 2013. After 2013, when Bitcoin got launched, 2014 to 2016 was a very, very interesting phase, where the first time people started realizing that blockchain is not only Bitcoin, but there are multiple parts to it. There are consortiums like Hyperledger, R3 has been formed. IBM became extremely active in the Hyperledger Fabric is Hyperledger Fabric is again part of IBM's blockchain center of excellences. And Gemini, Circle, Ethereum as a new currency popped up. So multiple different products happened. Then it went to the awareness kicked in 2017. There are exchanges which got into it. The utility tokens got spread in multiple ways. There are governance tokens. There are other kinds of tokens which started coming in, and then cut to 2018-19, and infrastructure had to be set up, because till now the traffic was less, but by now the proof of work or the proof of stake methodologies were so compute intensive that they had to set up infrastructure to maintain the cryptocurrency surge. And then in 2021, what has happened is the importance of blockchain got into uh, the mainstream, slowly getting into mainstream media, mainstream traditional finances, and banks or fintech started exploring what's the value around it. Can they tokenize some of their assets? Can they figure out if they can use it for some other use case started? And then it went on to 2023. What has happened, very interesting, is FTX meltdown started. So for the first time, people started understanding the risks around it, how people can go bankrupt, how there is volatility inside the whole ecosystem, which can completely change it, right? So those things happened. Then 2024, a lot of mainstream companies, right? The biggest important thing is Bitcoin ETF, launched by BlackRock, one of the largest asset manager in the world. And similarly, multiple others. Right now, there is over 220 products which are exchange traded products around cryptocurrencies. So huge boom. A lot of institutional adoption is happening. And what we envisage beyond is there will be lot Web3 uptake, and there will be multiple different models which will be launched, and regulations will come in. So those are the different phases of adoption. We are getting into mainstream. When the mainstream starts happening, there are a lot of regulatory oversight which happens, and then what happens is what we will understand more in this session. So one is how different stages of crypto evolution happened, right? But now you will see a proof in the whole system, right? By measuring number of users. Today we are around 560 million users, and if I see the trend right now, it is exactly mimicking how internet users were also grown over the period of time with evolution in the internet in Web 1 and Web 2. And similarly in Web 3, there are multiple crypto owners happening, and you can see the stats here. So that's the reason it is very important for us to understand Web 3. Just to give you a very brief number, right now, today, the value of global market cap of cryptocurrency is at $2.3 trillion. And with mostly it is the market cap is derived from top 10 coins, and in that also Bitcoin and Ethereum has large share in it. And already I told you, right, 560 to 580 million people are there right now who is owning cryptocurrency. And the second two things are very interesting. The survey says 94% of institutional investors are are creating long-term strategies around cryptocurrencies. And 56% of global executives says, Fortune 500 executives says, that they already are pursuing on-chain projects. That means you can see what is a kind of adoption which happens around this new asset class, which are crypto assets. And what's happening because of this adoption, right? I'm showing you from 2013 to 2024. See this different kind of assets I've tried to put here, and I tried to show what is the cumulative growth or the percentage of growth for each asset has happened. If you see the top row, you're very sure you can see that Bitcoin and Ethereum are the one which are doing very well. Like, except I can see in 2014 and 2018 and 2022, pretty much everywhere Bitcoin and Ethereum are showing how they are competitive enough. So what happens? I'm not suggesting it's not an investment advice or anything, but I'm saying that if these kind of returns are happening, right? If you see cumulative return, it's 440K percentage. It's mind-boggling, right? And annualized 100%, you are doubling every year, which is very, very interesting growth rate to have for any kind of a investor. So with this kind of numbers, do you think people will go back? No. So that is the reason many people would like to own the bit crypto assets. And in that, if I see the demographics, right, this is very important for you to understand, to see who actually owns the huge uh, a crypto asset portfolio. The first is blockchain users. Blockchain users are companies who are into data verification, who are launching dApps, who are into blockchain as a business. Are the first people are the people who are having highest amount of crypto assets with them. Second is crypto enabling technologies. The first is users. Second is the technologies which are enabling, right? There is a lot of infrastructure which is being created for custodian services, exchanges, staking services, or issuance of digital assets. All of them are also owning it. Next is miners. Miners are very organic, right? Because they mine, they get incentivized from cryptocurrency, and they're holding that currency for appreciation. And next is Web3 companies, public Web3 companies, which enable content generation and also content distribution, are some of the Web3 companies which are around, which own the crypto currencies. And last is cryptocurrency buyer. but this number is constantly growing, uh, and we're seeing surge. That means a lot of retail investors are getting exposure to the cryptocurrencies. So with this kind of a growth and with this kind of a hype, what happens is there is a lot of institutional adoption which happens. Okay, I'll take like a 30-second pause. If you have any kind of a question, please put it in the chat box so that we'll see if I can answer till now. Kaushik, I'm unable to hear you if you're speaking, but there is one question from Niharika. Apart from crypto assets, are there any other regulations on Web3 on the basis of information transfer through blockchain? Yes, there are regulations like you'll see very soon, but I can give you a heads up saying that all the GDPR compliances which are there, that is actually regulating NFTs, and also other regulations around IP creation. The existing regulations are being imposed on the Web3 assets too. Do you think startups in Web3 space carry responsibility to strike balances? Definitely. Startups, because this is not an issuer-led model in crypto assets, what happens is intermediaries who are a part of the value chain will be liable for compliance in that decentralization, privacy, and regulatory compliance are very key to it. So yes, startups will also have to play an important role than before.
Hi, Abhinav. Am I audible now?
Hey Kaushik, now you're audible.
Yes. Thank you for this presentation. And my question is, so decentralization, should mainly affect the top line and both bottom line of the financial companies, right? So why are they adopting it at such a rapid rate?
So let me reiterate the question. So you're saying decentralization is adding, like
I
is
mean, it
lowering bottom line is adding.
it will affect the revenues because then there'll be more players, and then it will affect the bottom line because then they have to these companies, which are established financial companies, they would
Mhm.
have to invest more in technology. So I just wanted to know why are still companies, adopting Web 3.0
Okay.
so aggressively?
No, the answer lies in the first part of the presentation, right? That's what I wanted to focus. That the main important thing is if you're considering cryptos as an asset, right? You see an ROI for that particular asset, and you have seen the numbers here, right? It's crazy. Uh, which kind of an asset gives you this kind of an output, right? So if that is happening, and usually you can see most of the financial institutions take a card out of their wins, correct? Or the ROI. And if that is the case, higher number of returns would definitely give them a better top line for them and also a bottom line. But for that, they have to invest today in this new wave of Web3. So that is the reason it is anticipating about the future and future proofing today. If they don't do it right now, right, someone else will do it. And you and me as an individual retail investor would like to see our money multiply, and they may want to invest in other place, and they may lose the current uh, client base. You also see, right, there is multiple changes which are happening. You can see how gold price gets more when the market crashes. Those are some trends, right? Even if Bitcoin increases, people start changing their portfolios to Bitcoin in anticipating of more returns. If I don't have Bitcoin or any kind of a crypto exposure currently in my portfolio, how would I do it? So you can see even to they go to such an extent that US government is seriously brainstorming that there has to be an exposure for their exposure to crypto assets for the strategic reserve. The reason only is not to become a fad very soon. That's the reason, Kaushik, it's happening. Yes, it is definitely in short term basis it is affecting their PNL, but on long term basis they want to continue their top line and bottom line. That's the reason they want to go with that. Okay, Aishwarya has one more question. Do you think global standardization of Web3 regulation is possible or even desirable? It's not possible, is my take on it, because every country has a different take on it. We'll see very soon in my next part right now. and it is desirable. um, that there is mixed opinions on it. If I say a standardized regulation is desirable for all the stakeholders, definitely, because it makes building technologies easy, the fungibility pretty easy, and exchange is also very easy. Yes, it is desirable. I'm keen to understand the usage of tech across cross-border payment and regulations. I have read some, okay, stable coins for cross-border in Europe, how India is adopting this technology. Okay, so see, cross-border payments are definitely an important use case, but uh, if I can say for India, right, there are regulations which are coming in which are not so favorable for crypto adoption quickly, like India, you know. For that is the reason there is a lot of experiments happening in stable coins. When stable coins come in, right, there will be ease of movements in cross-border payments. I think already sorry, you have only wrote that stable coins, right? Uh, so it's much more easier to work with stable coins than the fiat currencies there. So there are some experiments going on that front, and there are some companies which are also trying to figure out if they can create a global currency which is fungible, right? If you go to the core principles of cryptocurrency, cross-border payments is not at all a problem because you send money over an internet without an intermediary in it, right? That's the core policy of it. But as regulations are coming in, there are multiple use cases being figured out on that front. How anyone can draft smart contract. So if smart contracts are law in Web3, how do we handle jurisdiction disputes, intended consequences? That's your right. So for writing smart contracts, there are multiple SDKs which are available. Solidity is one, which you may know. I will not dwell more into it. It's more technology front, but jurisdictions, dispute management are very, very important while you're drafting a smart contract. Smart contract can be written in such a way that based on the jurisdiction, also you can change the contract. And smart contract is not writing rules, but how you govern the rules is the most important part of it. By participation by all the community inside that. So that's the USP of a smart contract. But like I said, while as regulations are kicking in, smart contracts has to be much more nuanced for sure. I'll pause for a while. Let us open up the second part of the presentation and then see. Uh, we have only half an hour and there are a lot of things to cover. Let me see. So institutional adoption, right? What has happened is because of this surge in the value, there's a lot of institutional adoption. And after private equity and US equities, cryptocurrencies are the ones which are being, there is interest by institutional institutions around the world. And why there is a motivation like Kaushal was asking this, right? One is definitely returns. Second is to diversify their portfolio. Third is to have a strategic intent. Like I told you, right? US treasuries are want to have strategic intent. And there is one more strategy is they may want to pick from based on lending and they want to stake or hedge their treasuries inside a crypto exposed fund. So that may give more returns for them. And last is innovation. Like I said, they don't want to have that FOMO feeling. So that's the reason innovation is also key to it. Now you see, only with the investment point of view, if you see the whole Web3 or the cryptocurrencies here, right? The exposure happens in these five ways, right? One is tokens. Tokens, individual tokens, Bitcoins, you can go to any exchange and purchase it. And next, you can get it from funds. Bitcoin ETFs are one good example of it. There is some exposure to other ETPs also, multiple coins around it. So that's the second way, the funds. Third is venture. Venture means when there is an ICO, initial coin offering, which is happening, or you are trying to invest in a web company, a Web3 company, and they want to give some of the tokens as equity to you. So that is one more way. And next is hedge funds. Multiple hedge funds are also opening up. They're basically hedging on a lot of cryptos. And last is equity. Uh, when you say equity, it's not directly, but there are companies who have opened up funds or who are hedging on multiple crypto assets, right? Their shares can also be bought on multiple traditional exchanges, right? Even that way, you get exposed to crypto funds. So this is how different ways you can do it. I've put some numbers around so you can see how it's growing day by day. Now, the reason I put this is basically to tell you how one can expose their ownership to crypto assets. That's when the regulation layer comes in between, right? One, you can directly own it through spot exchanges or through decentralized exchanges, do multiple ways. You directly own, keep it in your custody. Second is fund exposure, where you invest in a fund, so you do it. So purchasing a fund is one more access. Third is venture investing, and last is, like I said, public equities exposure. Now, each of them has different pros and cons. Like direct ownership has very high custody risk because you are having that custody. If you lose the keys or if you are being hacked, nothing can happen. Like you will lose that, but commissions are less. And next is fund exposure. The big problem here is you don't get to play in a blockchain, right? You may not be able to participate in the governance directly, but you will have some kind of an exposure only for returns. There is definitely additional fees for fund to manage, and also there is no ability for you to do a self custody here. Institutional custody happens. And next is venture investing. Venture investing has, again, you should be a qualified investor. You should understand the nuances of it because you're investing in a high risk entity, a new fund which is being, sorry, new Web3 startup which is being generated, or a new ICO, right? The it may hit or it may not hit. There are multiple coins which are not at all significant. There are around 26,000 plus coins around. So the percentage of you winning in venture investing is very slim. So that's one more way. And last is public equities exposure, right? The problems here is uh, the landscape, right? It's one is very nuanced and it is very limited. You can't go and invest like how you do it in direct ownership. It's very, very small. And also, like I said, governance, right? You are not part of it. Again, here, the board of directors of that company take all the calls. So you have the execution risk with you. The reason I'm emphasizing on all these cons is based on these cons, the regulations are evolved. Now, if you see direct ownership by numbers, I'll quickly go around here. Okay. So there are three types of custody, right? One is self-custody where you own, second is retail custody, third is institutional custody. So if there are three types of custodians which are there, self-custody means you have a hardware wallet and you keep. Retail custody is this is a wallet provider and you want to keep your coins with them, so that is retail custody, and they'll take small fee for handling that. And last is institutional custody where all the fiduciaries and financial institutions come here. Okay, so there is lot of risk around custody, right? One is cybersecurity risk. Like I said, there can be a lot of threats from hackers around the world to work around your tokens or your wallets, and you may lose your keys, and that's it. Your uh, portfolio is gone. There are multiple news articles around it. There are exchanges which are losing their custodies, right? BitBuy is a new one. WazirX was other. So it goes to that level, right? So one is that. Next is counterparty risk, and transaction irreversibility is also part of it. And last is like loss of private keys. There is public key, but there's no private key. What do you do? There is multiple problems around it. So what happens is, because of that, there are some things which institutional custody is preferred, and there many entities want a regulatory compliance around it so that law enforcement authorities can go and find the culprit and make sure your assets are safe. And there's a lot of technology around strengthening your crypto custody is also happening. Again, I spoke about it, fund exposure. You can see the names, who's who of the funds are part of crypto funds, and there are almost 220 plus funds who are doing this. And this is for the public companies with Bitcoin on their balance sheets. This is how you can get into cryptos indirectly. Now let's get into regulatory era. Sorry, let me pause again and then answer one or two questions and then go. Okay. Is it safe to invest in cryptocurrency at this point? Um, I'm not in a position to give you an advice that it is safe to invest in a cryptocurrency at this point or not. There are risks all around. The whole presentation is about only to show you risks, and the regulations are kicking in only to reduce risk as much as possible. So if you ask me what is the safety net around it, it's a perception or it's a personal point of view, I must say, or your ability to take the risk. Can decentralized governance ever be fully compliant, or will it always exist in a legal gray area? Uh, right now it's a legal gray area, definitely I can say. But idea or the ideal way multiple regulators are going towards is to make sure that the governance, even in decentralized for crypto assets, are the governance around these crypto assets are also regulated as much as possible. That is the intent, Vishal. No, like I said, we saw a lot of problems around custody, right? Where definitely returns is one big volatility is issue, but you as a entity, if you're owning it, how you how safe are you with that? So because of that, on the guiding pillars for regulations came in. One is to make sure AML and KYC are taken care. Money laundering, you may have heard from multiple crypto, I should say, experts in security, that crypto is being used by non-state actors or antisocial elements to exchange funds. So that is one big area of problem for crypto. Second is investor protection. Like I said, how we should make sure that the protector from extreme volatility and all the other threats around it, and how to make sure there is also investor protection around it. And next is token classification. How do we define token, right? If we define some kind of a thing that you have seen, I've shown you how ESMA or MICA categorizes the different type of tokens, right? They started from there. So if you categorize token, then you can limit the use cases and form regulations around it so that people who are participating in it can be safe. Okay. Now this is a map which shows how different regulations are being evolved across the world. Most of it, like I've tried to put advanced economies in it to tell you how United States, Canada are right now in a process of brainstorming, and there are multiple drafts which are already being floated around. Cryptocurrency Fit 21 is one bill, and the CFTC is doing a lot of deliberations on it. But UK, European Union, the MICA is part of European Union, Japan, UAE, Abu Dhabi has already launched something called VARA. South Africa, Bahrain, every one of it has. India and Russia are still it's gray area, even South America too. There are multiple other projects which are happening on that. Uh, so this is in detail. I have till 11:30. Okay, we have 30 more minutes. What is happening in different regulations? Like I spoke to you. The most important one is the European Union, where MICA regulations have been launched on May 2023, which has multiple aspects. Some people feel that it is overregulated, some people feel that it is good, and some people feel it has to still evolve because it was not able to capture the whole essence of of crypto assets. No, what happens, right? There are positive impacts as well as negative impacts on cryptocurrencies. One is it definitely increases the trust. There is a lot of consumer protection which happens, and then markets become stable because there is definitive way you deal with that particular asset, and there is business clarity. That means people who are or entities, business entities who are in that ecosystem understands how to dwell with that currency. And like someone said on the cross-border payments, right? If there is regulations which are pretty clear, The cross-border cooperation is very clean because there are AML checks, FRM checks, which are already on, which may happen on those cryptocurrencies. So it's much more easier. And at last, there is a standardization which may happen, and where everything works like a clockwork. But for negative impact, is because multiple regulators may have multiple regulations. So you as a business owner have regulatory uncertainty because it's constantly evolving. How do I develop the product? And like many thought leaders says, when regulation starts, innovation stops. So when there is set constraints, the innovation of thinking out of the box may be constrained. And there is high cost of compliance, which is required by all the entities. And because cryptocurrencies are of a global nature, there is jurisdictional fragmentation which is happening, right? One country may sue you, one country may allow you, but how do you deal with it is a difficult one. And lot of surveillance, the decentralization or the crypto assets, the origin itself says that there is a lot of anonymity in it. There is no require of intermediary in the whole process. That philosophy also is also lost. And at last, right, because you're constraining certain use cases for a crypto asset, the utilization, how do you use the token in different geography, in different jurisdiction, is pretty confusing. So these are also negative impacts of regulation. It's not that it's only positive. So there are two parts to it, but everything has to be taken care as an entrepreneur, as a professional in this particular industry. So like I told you, over-regulation has multiple risks to it. Like there is no experimentation, stifling of innovation may happen, and the whole transformation of decentralization may reduce a bit. And under regulation, what happens is a lot of scams, man. And if you're not at all regulating, then institutional adoption, where it can, the retail customers can depend on institutions, may stop. Right now, because BlackRock has started a fund on Bitcoin, that's the reason you can see how the prices got up, the demand for Bitcoin got increased. So similarly, if there is uncertainty, institutional adoption may reduce. And third is industry strategies, right? There can be SRO, self-regulated organizations, and there can be policymakers working with the industry, which can happen. So to strike a balance between compliance and innovation has to happen, or they have to create a lot of sandboxes to understand, sensitize the regulator, and then make it mainstream. Even that should be part of it. Like I said, there are some examples for it if you are regulating Web3, like how Ripple Labs and SEC are having differences between their motives for regulatory uncertainty. And also there is a lot of increased cost of compliance, right? USDT is one of the highest or mostly adopted for stablecoin, but in EU, because of MiCA, they are not legible right now. And Circle, which is again runs URC and USDC, was able to, like at a high cost of compliance, was able to launch a coin in the EU. And next is DeFi protocols. Like I said, uh, they can't be truly decentralized, right? Uniswap is one good example, which is being blocked in multiple locations because it is a decentralized exchange where you can swap with one other. Now, this is an interesting part, right? It's not only regulations which are stopping it, but also they also create new opportunities for us. One, like I said, building trust. Like I just gave you an example of Circle. At a cost of compliance, they were able to launch their coin in EU, and that is USDC. And now they're getting a lot of uptake, and they understand the Circle as an entity is trustworthy because it is complying to regulations. Now, next is regulatory arbitrage. Because you are into different jurisdiction, and also there are some favorable and there are some not so favorable places, right? You can work around. Suppose if one regulation is not helping you a lot, you can go to other regulatory ecosystem. The Dubai is a very good example. We're seeing multiple HQs are transferring to Dubai, and then work around that particular thing. So if your regulatory, like example, India, right? If it is a gray area, multiple Indian founders are going to Dubai to make sure they are there and they launch their ventures from there. Next is RegTech. You can also pop up a lot of RegTech companies like Chain Analysis is one good example, and then TRM Labs, who goes into they work with a lot of investigations agencies across the world to figure out a lot of frauds. This is just an example of it. There are multiple layers around it which can be built, and new business, right? Like compliance as a service. Broadridge is playing very big in it, if you may say. New recent public releases. There is a new entity inside the Broadridge which is called Digital Asset Solutions, which came up, and the whole value prop is to create a lot of compliance services around it. And incidentally, I had the product for that particular unit. Now, so like I said, compliance can also be used as catalyst. These, like I spoke to you, right? One is building trust. The one more part of it is you being compliant can also give a competitive edge to you. Like I said, there are two important stable coins which is pegged to USD. One is USDT and other is USDC. One is from Circle, other is from Tether. So this USDT was completely removed from EU, but USDC is still in EU, where a good amount of crypto investors are there. This is an edge which they got because they befriended compliance at that particular jurisdiction. And and last is there are a lot of Web3 niches like a new business models, new services can be adopted. I'll wait for now and let me answer a few more questions and then we'll go ahead. Any history of recovering the assets after hacking incident of WazirX? What I read is there is some part of it was able to recover, but not fully, is what I heard. But it depends on completely on the kind of hack, where it is being stored. If it is in a cold wallet, which someone can't access, can't do, and if it is being done by a jurisdiction, some jurisdictions, right? What I heard was for BitBuy, there were North Korean hackers which did that. So in that cases, you can't recover completely. So that is very difficult to do that. But yeah, sometimes they recover, sometimes they no. For WazirX, I heard that there is some part of it which got recovered because the spirit is getting lost with an ever increase in regulations. Is Web 3.0 destined to become 2.5? Decentralized is a spirit, but governed by centralized gatekeepers due to regulation. Uh, yes, you are right. I don't completely disagree with your statement. But you can see the spirit of it, right? The spirit of decentralization has an oversight, yes, but the use cases are very different. Now you can think of it, right? Some of the common, like what some of the assets which were never available for you to own. Example, I'm just giving you an example. There is a very costly art piece or a museum artifact which is very costly and which is growing, right? Example, sneakers, right? There are very limited edition sneakers which the value goes on increasing, and you can't own that particular piece even though the returns are extremely high. So you would like to own it. Now, yes, you want to own it, but what is the safety around it is where the regulations comes in. But yeah, it's a debate which is happening across the world. Yeah, the decentralization spirit is definitely tampered, not in the true sense. But but if you see, most of the coins or the projects even now, Web3 projects, right, are not truly Web3 at all, right? For Ether or for Bitcoin, right? You can see there are only few whales or there are few entities which can take real calls in it because of the nature of the smart contract which they're governed with. Truly decentralization by word is also not possible. So there is a large spectrum when you see from real decentralization, even in the current Web3 projects, which are so-called completely decentralized. So yes, there is a huge spectrum. Where are you in the particular spectrum decides you're part of 2.4 or 3.0. So that's it. Okay, is there any other question or should I continue? Okay. You keep questions popping up so I can answer a few of them. So some of the future trends, what happening, right? So just a sec, guys. Just opening phone. Okay, everything is in chat. Okay. There's also some future trends and predictions which I'm seeing. One is there is a lot of standardization and token taxonomies which may happen. Like I told you, right? What is DeFi token, or how do you categorize? How do you call staking? Which part of it is staking? How you should do? Who are the entities? Different types of custodies. All these things are very, very different, right? Even in tokenomics, if you see, there are different white papers, different mathematical models around it. Lot of things happening, and everyone calls in a different way. So there is a standardization of taxonomy which has to happen. There has to be KYC and AML integrations, which will become mainstream. India, you can see all the exchanges are full KYC, maybe ZepPay, CoinSwitch Kuber, or CoinDCX. They do full KYC, only then they can do. By the way, Kraken, which was not there before, which is a very huge exchange globally, was blocked in India. The reason is they don't do KYC. So they're not allowed in India. I think they opened up very recently, but yeah, that's what happens. And real world asset tokenization which flourish, which is very interesting. Right now, there are most of the tokens don't derive value, but with the real world assets, there's a lot of value which can be bought into it, and most of us can own different asset classes going forward. And like I said last, cross-border regulatory coordination will happen, and some of the thought papers are already written by BIS and FATF continuously on how stable coins or cross-border uh, payments can happen, and how the whole value chain will look like in the new Web3 realm can be seen here. Just a sec. And continue. So, like I said, there will be global coordination than fragmentation. But today, if you ask me, there's a bit of fragmentation around. You have seen the map which I showed you. And next is there will be a lot of emerging focus areas right now. There will be interoperability standards, and CBDCs will also take a major role in it. And very important thing is AI-based governance will come in, because the permutations and combinations for decentralized assets or crypto assets are so many. So it is humanly impossible getting real time, if I can say, AML checks or real time governance compliance checks is very, very difficult. So AI will 100% take main role in that. And we'll also see a lot of shift in security definitions going forward, because the nature of the asset is very different right now. And like I said, there is strategic business considerations which will happen. Multiple new age entrepreneurs which will come, and there are new opportunities where people will pounce upon will happen. And in that, a lot of engagement with policymakers and a lot of proof will be shown, or a new age regtech systems will come to showcase the monitoring, and there will be new roles which will be opened up to like how there are multiple consulting firms which open compliance consulting for you, right? Similarly, on Web3 world also will start happening, and new age tech architects will also come in because the business models are evolving. So that's the evolution. And this is my last slide. I just want to leave it with a note that there is one important, again, trend happening is a lot of crypto and AI convergence is happening. And these are few of the things which are happening in that world, which will help regulations in one way or the other, because a lot of training is happening, a lot of zero knowledge proof models are being used, and there are multiple agents which are being deployed to do multiple different objects. So there is auditability into it. So yes, there are multiple things happening, and there is decentralized compute is also happening. The reason I'm bringing in compute is there is an ESG element is also being added to in some of the regulations, because they want their customers to know what is the kind of environmental impact a particular token is doing on the world. So for that, a lot of AI is being deployed to decentralized compute so that they are sustainable as much as possible. Uh, so this is my presentation, and I conclude here. With this, let's open up for Q&A. Yeah, over to you, Rishabh.
Thanks a lot, Abhinav, for that really insightful session. I think as and when you were walking us through your entire presentation with your entire session, you yourself could see the different kind of questions that were coming in,
Yeah.
resonating with the points that you were calling out, as well as in a way asking you to predict the future and getting investment tips. But jokes aside, thank you so much once again for taking time out for walking us through this session. We have a few questions that came in, which most of which you have already answered in the chat. There are a few questions that have come to the panelists directly, and I'll sort of walk you through.
Okay.
The one of the questions that was also there in the chat, but I think it got missed, was now that anyone can draft smart contracts, right? Which is what is the legal binding entity in terms of Web 3.0.
Okay.
So if smart contracts are law in Web 3.0, how do we handle jurisdictions, disputes, and unintended consequences?
I think I answered that. Let me again clarify it. See, when jurisdictions come in, right, then by design, drafting a smart contract has to change. If there is a regulation around it, then you can't have a smart contract which will uh, have compliance gaps with that existing regulation. Example, just give you an example. If you, it's a global project which you're launching around crypto assets, and anyone from the world can participate in governance. But regulation says that some of the questionable geographies or FATF list blacklisted countries, people residing there can't participate in the governance. So you have to work around the smart contract in such a way that your project is not derailed. So yes, there will be a lot of regulatory, if I can say, compliance which is required to draft a smart contract. Now, next part is disputes. Disputes 100%. Regulations, I am thinking regulations are not so evolved right now to carry out all the disputes which are there inside a project, or basically participants inside a project. But there will be guiding principles in a lot of regulations. How do you deal with it? Example, if your asset is mimicking, like, let me take an example of MICA regulation, right? If your project is mimicking similar to any of the financial instrument. So the dispute management systems have to be built similarly for any other financial instrument in the traditional finance. So you can't wither away with it. But what you can do is you can create efficiencies around it. You can be better than it. But yes, there will be disputes, again designed as per the regulation. At an overarching level, you should be compliant, but you can do multiple innovation within those constraints.
There was
And
one.
yeah, sorry, unintended consequences I wanted to say. There are a lot of, like I told you, right? You can see Ripple versus SEC. There is a consequence which is already you can see because of the different point of views on compliance. So yes, there you will start seeing as soon as the regulations getting more and more uh, evolved as well as stringent, you will see multiple unintended consequences coming in by institutions, and there may be an also surge in disputes raised to regulator by retail investors too. That's my take on it, like how it happens in traditional finance.
Thank you, Abhinav. There's one more question, which is somewhat in similar lines to the point that you were just highlighting, right, in terms of the consequences that would come in. So, in a completely decentralized world, right, because we are still in that nascent stage where regulations are still kicking in, we're still evolving as a country, as a nation, or as a unity to sort of evolve with the regulations that are coming in. Who would be ultimately accountable when things go horribly wrong? Will it be developers? Will it be validators? Or will it be the users themselves because
Mhm.
of just lack of regulations at this point in time?
What I see is at most of the places, like I said, it's not an issuer-led model. What I see is intermediaries participating in the value chain or who owns the end customer uh, will be given more focus is what my understanding is. Like if Bitcoin is an issuer, I'll just give you an example, right? A Bitcoin issues, right? And it is being wrapped by BlackRock and the fund is being issued to an end user. If there is any problem in that, right? I'm pretty much sure there is no one in Bitcoin you can go and work with, or there's nothing, right? There is a lot of decentralized nature still exists in Bitcoin, right? But definitely BlackRock entities like BlackRock may be required to answer or be held responsible for not mitigating those risks or not giving that customer confidence is what I understand. But again, we should wait for regulations to kick in, which is completely evolved, and then take a call on it. But this is my initial take on this. I think Abhishek had raised his hand. Abhishek, are you around? Yeah, Abhishek. Abhishek.
Hey, hi, Abhinav. Very wonderful session. Am I audible?
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Pleasure. And I've been hearing you since last 1.5 hours. It's amazing. My question is very particularly towards Indian ecosystem.
Mhm.
Now, I know the Broadridge has a very global presence, but now a lot of dApps and the developers have come from Indian ecosystem, and I believe we are the third largest economy who is contributing into Web3 ecosystem.
That is right.
Where do you see us heading when it comes to regulations? Because US is adopting a lot of regulations to see how they can support this ecosystem, while
Mhm.
India is lagging behind.
Mhm.
What insights you have for us today? A, where are we heading? B.
Okay. So just to introduce to everyone, right? Abhishek is a pro in Web3 world. He and I work very closely. He's a founder. You should definitely see his startup called Secured App, and he works around it. But to Abhishek's question, right? There are two things he asked. One, how regulations in India are evolving. What is my take on it? And Abhishek, can you repeat the sorry? The second part of the question was.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. Where are we seeing? Why are we lagging when it comes to
Why are we lagging? Okay, got it.
A, and B, where are we heading? Like in
Sure,
future?
sure. I can tell you, thanks Abhishek for the question. So I, I, I was part of multiple discussions and I did get even some FaceTime with SEBI as well as some policymakers in RBI, NBCI as well as IFCA. What I understand is there is a lot of I can say, wait and watch game which is being played by ministry to understand how the regulations around the world are shaping up, and they don't want uh, because sheer mass or the kind of demography we have, right, is very huge, and our kind of volume gets into crypto asset or crypto ecosystem which is not regulated and there's no clarity around it. The consequences will be much more higher than countries with less population. And that is one big thing. And second is, like I said, the AML is a very, very huge problem, which currently ministry is seeing. That's the reason they are also a little energetic when it comes to opening up. And the third part of it is they are doing multiple projects around CBDC to counter, or should I say, uh, to satisfy some of the needs of Web3 enthusiasts. So combination of these three things, that is the reason they are doing a wait and watch game. But right now, I can tell you, IFSCA has already opened up a draft paper on RWAs because IFSCA has that unique position to work with multiple regulators across the world in the Gift City ecosystem, right? So they may be the first movers when especially uh, coming into the Web3 ecosystem. So, and there is draft paper. What I read from some of the news publications is there is a draft paper which is being drafted by SEBI. I think last year, government, there are some discussions happening that it is has to be classified as an asset, not as a currency, and more than RBI, it is SEBI who gonna take a call on it. So that is being drafted right now, and they're also working on a lot of tokenization that I'm aware of. So very soon I'm seeing there will be tits and bits which will be coming out of Indian regulators to do it. And there is, it's a gray area, right? You can definitely invest in cryptocurrencies as an asset class, but there is a lot of hindrances, or if I can say penalty taxes which are on it. But there, my sense is they'll stay for some more time till there is clarity. And I think at a whole level, right, it is confidence building measure or risk mitigation strategy which government and regulators are doing in country like India, which is the primary function of any regulator. So they're, I think they're up to that job. That is one. And like I said, what going forward, some of the regulators are opening up. There will be many entrepreneurs uh, in India who will be developing India-led system. Like exchanges, you can see, right? Most of them are India-led. There is a foreign funding for sure, and like multiple funds have funded it. But there will be more and more startups coming in this space, and also we will be seeing a lot of regtech, which comes into play. And exactly like Abhishek's startup, like how Secure App is one good example, who you are giving a service for understanding the smart contract legibility and finding gaps, right? I think you will have good business around. So that's my take on this.
Thank you, Abhinav. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this session. I think, Abhinav, well, I've echoed what I started off with. It was truly an impactful session that you've driven today. The conversations that came out, the questions that were asked, the insights that you shared was all just meaningful and has not only just will just be limited to this particular session today, but it will definitely embark and spark more conversations as we head into the future. Thank you so much once again, Abhinav, for accepting our invite, for graciously working on the presentations and walking us through, for giving us your valuable time to drive your session on this particular topic. There was just so many key takeaways for all of us to listen to. Thank you so much, Abhinav, once again. To all our audience members who had joined in, thank you so much for taking time out and being a part of this session. We look forward to hosting you again in our future events. For any queries, questions, please feel free to reach out to us at events@zinnov.com, insights@zinnov.com. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a great.
Thank you everyone for your time.